Everyone, Garrett here from Code the Web, and in this video we're going to be doing our first Q&A video here on Code the Web. So the questions that I have for you guys, or that were asked of me, came from the Code the Web Facebook group, so if you're not in that, I highly recommend joining that, and then you can ask questions for videos like this. Also, I did start another channel. It's called Tech Crib. I mentioned it in my Code the Web in 2017 video, but if you haven't already subscribed to it, I definitely recommend doing so. It's going to be on technology, just going to be talking about tech and cool stuff like that. So check that out, link in the description as well. Before we go on, I do want to apologize if I sound sick. That's because I am sick, so excuse my sounding all nasally and whatever. Alright, so if I also mess up any of these names, I do apologize. I'm sorry. So the first question here is by Soren Klein, who asks, which programs do you use? And as a follow-up question, they also asked, have you created a multimedia project, custom website, animations, videos, maybe even sounds? Alright, to answer your first question, which programs do I use? I'm not sure if I did a video on this. I know I did a video on what I use to make like websites and stuff, but I don't know if I went into the software side of things. I think I did. But basically, we can just go through it. I use, for my editor, for like my HTML, like all my coding stuff, I use this app called Coda 2. I do not recommend it, but I use it because I know how to use it. I know all the ins and outs of it. And quite frankly, I just don't really want to spend the time to have to learn something new. I've tried out things like Atom, like Sublime Text 3, but I just wasn't able to really grab them, really like them as much as I like Coda. The reason I don't recommend Coda is because over the years, they've not really managed it or maintained it, updated it properly. And so now there are some issues like graphic rendering issues that I find on these newer Macs. But when I first started using it, which was like back in 2008 maybe, it was a great piece of software. And I still think it is. I mean, it does the job and it makes sense to me how it works. I know how to use it. Everything just kind of makes sense. But I don't recommend you going out and buying it because it does cost money. Second question that you had was, have you ever created a multimedia project? So yeah, I've made websites that were a custom website with animations and videos. I don't really use sound in my website projects. If you want to include, the video sound as sound, then yeah, sure. I mean, you embed a video and there's sound in that, right? But other than that, I don't like websites that have sound. I think they're kind of childish, a little juvenile, unprofessional. I know Facebook, I think, does it for their, the messenger thing inside of Facebook, which makes sense because it's a notification, but I just don't like it in my own projects because I'm not making a messenger like Facebook is, so, there's not as much of a reason for me to do it. But other than that, yeah, animations, videos, I definitely have done that in the past. Next question is Mohamed Salah asks, what kind of projects do you do after learning a programming language, which heavily rely on that specific language in programming theory, algorithmic stuff, etc.? Okay, I made a video about this as well, I think, in the past, which was knowing a language versus actually being able to do whatever you want with that language. I would say there are two types of projects you can do. One is the kind of project that when you look up on Google, what kind of project should I do for this language, these kind of projects will come up. They might be things like a calculator or a cash register app or a card game or a chessboard game, which you had mentioned in the comment on the Code the Web community. Those are fine. Like, they teach you what they can teach you, which is more limited because, the idea is already there. People have already done it. But then there's the other type of project that you can do to learn about programming languages, which is an idea that you have. Most of the stuff that I want to make to teach myself about a language doesn't come from some calculator application that someone else has already done that I can do. I have a business idea or an idea for a website, and I want to go make that, and I try to teach myself the language through making that. And I think that does more for you long term, both educational wise, because you're coming across problems that haven't necessarily been solved or that you can't easily find a solution to. So you have to really break them down and find solutions, which is ultimately programming is about. Communicating with the computer, obviously, and solving problems, coming up with solutions to problems that you come across. That's what making new things consists of. Whereas if you are, and doing that is going to teach you way more and make you more of an expert than making a calculator app that 1,000 or even 1,000,000 people have done in the past. It's also going to be more rewarding, like give you personally more satisfaction, because if you're making a calculator app, it's like a little thing, yay, very exciting, I was able to make this calculator, but now what? Whereas if you make some website that you've had an idea for the last year, like that is mind-blowing, that is awesome, like that is so cool that you were able to do that. And I think that will not only teach you more about programming, but it'll also have just more, give you more satisfaction and make you feel better about yourself as a person in general. Basically, because then you're accomplishing your goals more, is what I'm trying to say. Next question is John Neal, who asks, what design practices should we avoid using? Okay, there are definitely design practices that you should avoid using. You should, instead, I think, of looking at what you shouldn't do, you should focus on how to properly do what you should do. So, for example, like having a good ratio of text to imagery, or having everything be proportionally sized appropriately, right? Things like that will do more for you, and that if you focus on those things, you will be able to get more out of your website. What I would also recommend doing is to understand that the best website is not the website that looks the best. The best website is the website that successfully executes the way it's supposed to and helps you or your client to reach their goals, to achieve their goals in the most efficient possible way. Now, the great example of this is Craigslist. Craigslist is an awful looking website. I don't know if they have Craigslist internationally, but for those of you who live in the States, and if you don't live in the States, just check out Craigslist. It's like a place where you can just list something that you want to sell, or if you need help doing something, you can list it there. And so Craigslist is a terrible looking website, but it functions so well that everybody uses it. And that's my point, is that if you can make a website that successfully does what it needs to do and solves a problem that it's meant to solve, then the look of it won't matter so much. Now, I'm not saying don't make it look good. Like, obviously, yes, you should make it look as good as possible, but focus on the functionality first, and focus on the usability and the user experience, which I know user experience includes the design, but focus on the user experience as a whole and not just the design aspect of it. Because like I said, a website that looks great but doesn't do anything is useless. So just don't forget that. All right, these last two questions are actually questions that I get from not everyone, but a ton of people. So the first one is, what should I learn for web design? I want to preface this by saying that I am working on a guide for CodeTheW.com, which will go over exactly what you need to learn and where you should learn it, where you can learn it, the order in which you should learn it for learning about web design. But what I would say is start off with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then from there you can kind of just, there's a lot of different libraries and frameworks that go into each of those languages. For example, Bootstrap, learn Bootstrap. Foundation, I don't know if anyone uses Foundation anymore, but Foundation is still existent, I think. So yeah, I would learn those three languages and make sure that you become an expert, because the most important thing, and this kind of goes into the second question, is I'll just read this first. I want to become a freelance web designer. How do I do that? Okay, so they kind of go hand in hand. I think that a lot of people contact me and they're like, oh, I'm learning this, I'm learning that. Okay, now how do I do freelance web design? But what you guys forget is that just because you know the language doesn't mean that you can make anything that you want. And anything that you want is different than anything your client wants. You might only have an interest in making static, really simple websites that look really good, but your client might want something way more extravagant than that. And when the client comes to you and says, oh, I need you to do this, you better be able to do this. So make sure that you have mastered web design, that you've mastered those languages before you go and start selling your skills, your time to people, okay? Because like I said, if you can't do what you say you're going to be able to do, you're not going to be successful. Now, assuming that you've done all that you've mastered everything, and that you can 100% build anything that your client comes to you and asks you for, what you need to do is get your name out there. This is really, really important. If no one knows about you, you're not going to be able to sell anything. So get some business cards, get some brochures, get some, make like a PDF that you can just send to people that kind of talk about what you do. Make a portfolio website and showcase all of your best work. Get on Facebook, get on Twitter, get on Instagram, get on Pinterest, whatever it is. Get on some social media platforms that also allow you to distribute your work, because a big thing is distribution, and those things allow people to follow you. What you need to do is get your name out there in any way you possibly can. But first, of course, you have to make sure that you've mastered everything that you're going to be selling. All right? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed to TechCrib, link in the description, definitely be sure to do that. And if you want to be able to ask questions like this in the next Q&A video, go over and join the Facebook group, also link in the description. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.